I really needed to figure out how to get my time together and how to manage it. This technique incorporates time boxing, other things related to how the mind works and the dynamics of play, and some other cognitive techniques. It ended up being a huge help. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to my channel. I'm Nannearl, and this is Unpacked Angles with me, where we're focused on widening the perspective on all things UX and more. And today, I want to talk about time. I feel like time is hitting a lot different right now because of the Rona. Pandemic time is very strange. It's been like 3 years since March, right? And for those of us who are working, we are sleeping at work right now. Okay, we are not working from home. We are living from work. It's really tough to have that separation of work and just other things in life, especially if our living space isn't really set up for that. So like if we don't have an extra monitor, need that, or a desk, really need that, or even just like a dedicated space in the place that you live. Like we need that separation. I have been doing remote work since before the pandemic hit, and I definitely learned the hard way that I needed to have a desk and a good chair and an actual monitor, like other things than just my laptop, because my neck and my back, when I tell you the pain I was feeling, like it was serious. But we need this separation from work and life. Like it's so easy to end up working too much or to get distracted or to even burn out, and just all of these negative things that come with working at home and also not being able to leave your home like that. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about time and how to manage it and the techniques that have really helped me. So for me, it's been really easy to get distracted, especially with everything going on, right? So the pandemic is weighing down on everybody. There are other protest related things happening. I have like secondhand embarrassment / I'm depressed because of the leadership of our country. And there's of course, other happenings in the world, how other countries are handling COVID, what's going on in Turkey, like all of this stuff, right? I feel like it's really easy to get distracted and feel like there's not a lot of time to get things done or to like do anything. So because of how I'm feeling and how other people I suspect are probably feeling too, I wanted to share how I manage my time, or how I've managed my time previously, because I'm gonna keep it real. Your girl has not been like really consistent with this, especially like now. Sometimes I'm good, sometimes I'm not. So it's like really on and off for me, depending on what's going on and where I am in my mental space. Normally, on my good days, I manage my time using the Pomodoro technique. And I'll get into what that means in just a second. I don't really remember how I found out about this technique. I think I was Googling, just like on the internet, randomly looking for help because I needed help. I really needed to figure out how to get my time together and how to manage it. It ended up being a huge help. So personally, I have a warped sense of time, or at least I think I do. Like I have self-diagnosed myself. But I think time moves slower than it actually does. And I remember feeling like this as a child too. So I've just kind of had this issue all my life, I guess. But I remember as a child, my mom would always rush me through things. Like I was always moving too slow. So even since childhood, I've just always felt very rushed. I looked this up because I was having a few major issues that I really needed to figure out a solution for when it came to time management. So in my previous position, I was living that early startup life, working 24/7, would not recommend. This was a very unhealthy time period for me and work. I didn't know how to take breaks. If you have listened to the previous episode where I talk about the Unpacked Angles origin story and explain how and why Unpacked Angles came to be, I talk a little bit about how I made work part of my identity. Also, would not recommend. Don't do that. Don't be like me. But yeah, I made it part of my identity, and that was really unhealthy, especially when it came time for me to leave that position. And so because of this and me not taking breaks, I was not recharging myself enough, and therefore I burnt out like 1.5 times. Horrible experience. I never ever want to burn out again, and I'll probably be doing an episode that's more focused on burnout in the near future. But yeah, I needed to figure out how to take breaks, what that looks like, and how to do it without feeling like I was slacking off. So this technique really helped me in addition to a little therapy, because your girl needed that. I was also having trouble focusing, which is a problem that I'm having now in addition to a problem I was having back then. And on top of all that, I was terrible at estimating the time it would take for me to do something and get it done. I have a high anxiety around time because of like my warped sense of time that I claim I have. So it really bugs me when I am late or when I'm running late. So I really try not to do that. I believe in respecting people's time, and I believe in people respecting my time. So I'm not trying to be late on nobody else's clock. Because of that, I usually am early or I'm just late. I'm never really on time, and if I'm on time, it's an accident because I meant to get there early. But yeah, estimating the time it'll take you to complete something or to do something, that comes with experience, of course, but I also was not tracking that. So I didn't have a method of even starting to gather that information so that I could predict how much time something would take me in the future. Y'all, I really used to be like, yeah, it'll take me 2 days. And then it'd be day 5 and I'm like halfway done and I was struggling. So yeah, I was fed up with my issues with time and I needed something to help me out. And so I discovered the Pomodoro technique, and this technique has actually been around for a while now. It was coined by this dude in Italy. His name is Francesco Cirillo. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right. I know how to speak Spanish, but I don't know how to speak Italian. I'm pretty sure they're similar, but I don't know about how they pronounce the double L's. But yeah, it's coined by Cirillo, and he actually wrote a book on it. It's a very easy read. It's like 30-something pages where he literally just goes through, tells you about the Pomodoro technique and why it's important and how he came up with it and how to actually do it. So if you're interested in practicing this technique, I would definitely look into his book because he explains it the way it was like meant, quote unquote, meant to be practiced, and then you can remix it to however you like in the future once you kind of get used to it. Or you can see how other people have practiced it too, because other people kind of remix it to what they like to do and how they work. So check it out. So the technique has a few specific goals that it strives to accomplish in order to improve your productivity. And those goals are listed in the book, but there were 3 that caught my eye when I was doing my research. And they were 1, enhancing focus and concentration by cutting down on interruptions. 2, boosting motivation and keeping it constant. And 3, refining the estimation process both qualitatively and quantitatively. So at a high level, just to kind of explain it in a general sense before breaking things down, in this technique, you work for a set amount of time and then you take a short break. And that set amount of time plus that short break is called a Pomodoro. So let's say you work for 25 minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. That 25 minutes of work plus that 5-minute break equals 1 Pomodoro. And Pomodoro means tomato in Italian, and I promise this will all make sense by the end of this episode. But yeah, so you have a Pomodoro, and usually you work a certain amount of sets of Pomodoros before you take a longer break. So let's say you work 4 Pomodoros, so that's 25 working, 5-minute rest, 25 working, 5-minute rest, etc. 4 times total, and then you take a longer break, which is like 15 to 30 minutes long. You can alter these times the way you want to. This is kind of steeped in science, so taking a longer break, like longer than 30 minutes for your long break or longer than 5 minutes for your short break, might kind of break your flow or interrupt your flow in a way that's not as helpful for your work and your concentration, but you can always kind of tailor it to what you need and how you work. So obviously this technique incorporates time boxing, other things related to how the mind works and the dynamics of play, and some other cognitive techniques. So now that you have an idea of like the general makeup of what a Pomodoro is and kind of how to practice Pomodoros and like the breaks and how that's all structured, let's dive a little bit deeper into it. Now, I don't want to get into too much detail just because there is the book, and the book goes into as much detail as you need in order to understand and practice the technique. But I do want to leave you with a good understanding of what the Pomodoro technique is and how to generally practice it. So in order to practice it, you are going to need 1, a list of things that you need to do whatever day. So today, for example, you need a to-do list. You need to know what it is that you're working on for the day. And these are not necessarily things that you need to have finished today. Probably, ideally, in like an ideal world, these would all be things that you could finish in one day, but that is not the focus of this technique. The Pomodoro technique is more so focused on progress than it is like with finishing or completing something. So it has to do with just getting to the next step versus getting to the finish line. And Cerillo goes a little bit more deeper into like what this is and why it is that way, but that's the essence of it. So yeah, you want your to-do list. You also want to order those different activities on your to-do list in order of priority. So of course you want the highest priority things at the top of the list and then the lower priorities at the bottom. The Pomodoro technique is supposed to relieve the anxiety that comes with time and like, having a deadline and needing to complete something by a certain time. And that is what mainly drew me to it. But yeah, on your to-do list, you want to, at the very least, have a date so that you're keeping track of everything that you are working on each day. You also want to have a space on that sheet for unplanned and urgent activities. And these are essentially the things that are going to interrupt you throughout the day. You don't necessarily know what those are up front, like before they happen, but as they happen while you're working, while you're going through your Pomodoros, you want to jot those down. And the book does a fantastic job of like showing you what these lists look like and the things that you need. And they have like little copies in there for you to kind of recreate on your own. So I'm not going to get into those, but definitely check that out if you want to see how he structures his chart and what you can take from that. The second thing that you're going to need is a timer of some sort. There are Pomodoro apps that exist in the App Store specifically for working and using the Pomodoro techniques. So I would check those out. I think there's an app called Pomodoro, like it's just literally called Pomodoro. And there's also another app that I like called Focus Keeper, and it uses the same technique as well. So it's kind of like your preference, but yeah, you can use that if you want to use apps. You can also have a physical timer, which is what is preferred. So I have a physical timer as well. It kind of depends on like what I am in the mood for in terms of if I use this or if I use the app. Yeah, it just really depends on my mood. So back in the day, and there are still some kitchen timers that look like this, but there's a kitchen timer that looks like a tomato that you twist, right? So like I have my physical timer here and you twist it to the time that you need to set. And that's why it's called the Pomodoro technique, because of like the tomato timer, but you can literally use any timer. But having a physical timer is something that I would encourage because it is physically in your hand and you physically wind it up. Oh crap. I guess it's gonna ding, hold on. Yeah, because you physically wind it up, psychologically, it's like a declaration of your dedication. So there is some psychology in actually having a physical timer. You're physically putting intention behind what it is that you're doing. So you're being intentional about the time that you're gonna take in order to work on whatever it is that you're working on for that set amount of time. And speaking of intention, if you haven't listened to the episode on mindful UX and how I practice mindfulness within the field, I'd recommend checking that out once you get a chance. Another thing about the physical timer, and I think it's applicable to the apps too, is you have to be able to see the time that is left on the timer easily, and there has to be a very clear signifier that time is up when it is up. So once that 25 minutes or however long you work for is done, that timer needs to go off, whether it's an alarm, whether it's like the ring with the physical timer, whether it's music, like whatever it is, there needs to be an audible, clear signal if you're able to hear. I would imagine if you're not, perhaps something that is more visually stimulating, like is a very clear signal that you need to stop, or maybe even like some type of vibration. It's very important during this technique that you stop at the end of the time that you're supposed to be working for and you take your break. That was the thing that drew me into this technique as well, is that it forces you to take a break. And this was really hard to do. Really hard for your girl to do at first, not gonna lie. Getting yourself to stop and take that break is not easy if you're not used to taking breaks, but it is worth it because once you jump back in and you go through all of the sets of the pomodoros that you're supposed to or that you have planned for the day, you'll see the difference. I guess it's because your mind is like a battery. It helps you recharge for a little bit and then you go right back into it. Another thing you need for this technique is an inventory sheet. And so your inventory sheet is basically a list of things that you need to do. Your to-do list, except just not for only today, like the to-do list for everything that you have to do. I typically go through and do one for like the month. I'll do it like on a month-to-month basis. So that way I don't have just an overflow of things that I need to do and then stress myself out a little bit. But yeah, the things that you're doing today that are on your today list will be on your inventory sheet as well. And anything else that comes up that you realize you need to get done within this month, if you're going by like a month of inventory activities, then you would add that to the inventory sheet as it comes up. And you'll also need a records sheet. And this is just where you record your performance for the day. If you're using apps as your timer for your pomodoros, some of them do have like an analytics chart included. So I know Focus Keeper, for example, has a section where you can see your levels of productivity each day for like the last 14 days or like for the last month, and it'll show you a graph. So you can kind of see like what's going on with your productivity levels. It's included in that app, but it's really helpful to see like where your levels have been throughout the week or, you know, the days that have gone by, and why potentially your levels are like that. So you can see what happened throughout your day on the to-do list for today, so whatever day that was. So let's say that on July 15th, my productivity came up pretty low compared to the other days that I worked and used the Pomodoro technique. I can go back to that to-do list for that day that's dated for that day and see some of the unplanned and urgent things that came up. So anything that interrupted the work that I was doing. This record sheet is also where you start to quantitatively track how long things take you to do so that you can make better estimations for the future. So what does this process typically look like? How do we practice this Pomodoro technique? First, you plan your day. You can either do this the night before or you can do it early that morning or whenever you're starting your day. When you're planning your day, you take the activities that are on your inventory sheet, that is just the list of things that you got to get done. For me, is for the month. I'll take the high priority ones and put it on my to-do list for today and order them by priority, starting with the highest priority first. Now, there are some instances where I'll have a high priority activity, but it's not something that I necessarily need to finish that day, but I need to work on it. For example, if I wanted to plan out making an outline for an Unpacked Angles video, I could maybe plan to write half of that outline or gather the resources for that outline and only plan to use 4 pomodoros total to do that work. And whatever I get done within those 4 pomodoros is what I get done. And then I'm moving on to the next thing on the list. So I typically like to make sure that I either have an estimation of how long things are going to take me and see if I can like match that, or I will dedicate a set number of pomodoros to a specific thing on the list if it's not necessarily something I need to have finished right away. So yeah, you plan your day and then you get to work. So as you're working, you have your to-do list in front of you. Your timer is going, whether that's on your app or your physical one, and you're working through your pomodoros. You want to track those pomodoros. So for every activity that you have on the list that you are working on or that you get to, you want to make sure that you capture that. For example, my pomodoros are typically 25 minutes of work, 5-minute break. That's my short break. And I'll do that 4 to 5 times and then take my long break, which is usually 30 minutes. And so I will start working, have my timer on, alarm goes off or timer ends, take my break and go through that and make sure I'm capturing, okay, that was 1 pomodoro, take my 5-minute break, maybe scroll on Twitter, check my email, get some water, go to the bathroom, and then I'm back on 5 minutes later. Also make sure you time your breaks because I have gone a little longer than usual or a little longer than I'm supposed to because I forgot to time my actual break. If you're using the app, That won't be a problem because they time your breaks for you. At least the Focus Keeper app does. But with your timer, if you're using a physical timer, that might take some getting used to. You gotta remember to actually time your breaks too. After my 5-minute break, I'm back on it for that 25 minutes and go through that way. One of the reasons I really like using my physical timer, besides the fact that I'm being intentional about setting the time and just having that physical aspect there, is the ticking. Because of the ticking sound it makes. In the app, I'm able to hear ticking too, but it just sounds a little bit more real or like real life when I hear it coming from the timer. You're supposed to hear the ticking as you go throughout your work during your Pomodoro, in addition to seeing the time. And there's like mixed feelings about this that I have read from other people while I was doing my research. And so some people really enjoy the ticking sound, you know, it's comforting or whatever. Other people do not like it, and it's just like a race to beat the clock, and that is not what it's supposed to be. I do think it takes a little bit of getting used to doing the Pomodoro technique a few times before actually not feeling that way. At least that's the way it was for me. It did give me anxiety at first, but now I really enjoy the ticking sound. But if you're not into the ticking, I know in the Focus Keeper app, you can use other sounds. Like I have rushing water, like waves at the beach or something as a sound. It's not supposed to be like beating the clock because we're not trying to necessarily finish. Again, like talking about the essence of the Pomodoro technique, we're really just trying to make progress. But like with the ticking, there's something about it where it has helped me and some other people realize like how long they've been working. So after you start doing it for a while, you will know when you're halfway through or when time is like 5 minutes until it's up. It's really weird. I'm actually not really sure how or why that happened, but it did. It's given me more of an intuition of how long I've been working and when it's almost time for me to take a break, which I really like. Once that timer goes off, you need to stop. You have to stop immediately and take your break. It could be a 2-minute break too. Like you could literally just get up, go to the kitchen, pour yourself a glass of water, go back to wherever you were at, drink your glass of water or take a sip or whatever, and then get back to work. It can be just that long as well, but you have to literally shut your brain off from whatever it is that you were doing in order for it to work well. So yeah, get on social media, check your little accounts or whatever, but then make sure you get back to work. And as you're working throughout the day, you want to record any interruptions that come about that interrupt your Pomodoro. So if you have to take the dog out, or your oven catches on fire, or even if you have a phone call, you can let those interruptions happen. That's fine. What you can't do is count that Pomodoro that you were just in as something that was completed. You have to kind of start over. So let's say I was working on this outline. I have 3 Pomodoros so far. I'm on my 4th Pomodoro, and this is the Pomodoro I do before I take my long break. And so I'm looking forward to this long 30-minute break, right? And then I get a call from my mom, and she really needs me to do something, or we have to have a conversation, like it's important. I can take that call, that's fine. However, what I can't do is count that Pomodoro. So once I get back to work, it's going to still be my 4th Pomodoro. I still have to do that last one before I can take my long break. So that's the downside to interruptions. But the good thing is you get a sense of what knocks you out of concentration really bad versus like what is little and can wait. You start to really prioritize things that interrupt you on your day-to-day, whether they be external or internal. And the book says something so cool about internal interruptions that I thought was really cool. Actually, I'll quote it. Hold on. Often the number and variety of attempted internal interruptions are symptoms of our fear of failure in completing the task at hand. Man, if that didn't read me. So yeah. Interruptions, they can come in all different forms, shapes, and sizes. Record them so you can look back on them, which brings us to what you're supposed to do after you've finished your day of work. So once your workday is done, you want to process how you did. So this includes entering your Pomodoros for each activity. So how many Pomodoros did it take for each activity, or how many Pomodoros did you use to work on each activity, and whether or not those activities were completed. And of course, you want to make sure that you know if they were meant to be completed that day or not. You also want to make note of any interruptions that you experienced that day. And as you go through and collect this data on yourself, you can start to realize how long some things take. And you can kind of do some digging around and see if anything looks funny here. So if you are taking what seems to be an abnormal amount of time for you to get something done, that could be the chance to evaluate your process, maybe go through and look at the days where you worked on that activity and see what different things happen. And there you can go from just feeling like, man, that took me a long time, to what can I do differently about the way that I worked on this? Whether it's like, do I need to be in a different environment? Do I need to maybe employ someone else? Like, do I need help in XYZ? Like, what is it that could help to improve your process? A rule of thumb, if you will, for the Pomodoro technique is to not take more than 5 to 7 Pomodoros on a specific activity. So if you find that an activity that you have on your list is taking you more than 7 Pomodoros, then it is going to be up to you to break that activity down. So if I find something on my list that has taken me more than 7 Pomodoros to complete, I know that I need to break that activity down some more. So how else can I chunk this in a way that I can complete these different steps in order to work to completing like this whole activity in this set amount of Pomodoros, so 5 to 7. Also, on the flip side, if I find that a certain activity takes me like 10 minutes to do, so not even a complete Pomodoro, that is an indicator to me that I need to add that activity to another activity and work on those things simultaneously. So for example, if I say that replying to 2 emails is something that I need to get done today, these 2 specific emails, and it takes me like 10 minutes, then I know if I have something similar to that where I need to reply to a couple emails on a similar subject, then I can add replying to those emails along with whatever else activity I have going on for that day. So once you go through your records and you see all of this information that you've gathered, you really want to visualize all that you've processed in order to make sense of it and then act on it. Seeing what happened and then being like, okay, so how can I structure or plan this differently in the future so where these interruptions are less likely to happen and therefore might help to decrease the number of Pomodoros this is going to actually take. There is a lot that goes into this technique, and where I typically fall short, or where I've fallen short recently, is actually recording everything and then being able to look back on my recordings, which is like the entire point of the Pomodoro technique if you're using it to help you with better estimations of how long it takes you to do certain things. So I need to get better on that. Now I've been doing it more qualitatively, just like, oh, I count my Pomodoros with check marks. And so it's just like, oh, it's gonna take me like 3 check marks to do that, or it'll take me like 10 check marks to like get through like this list of activities. So maybe I need to plan around that, but I haven't really dug into it as much as I could. I hope that this makes sense and I didn't go too deep on some of the things. For the people who I have mentioned and explained or just introduced this technique to, they have loved it. It has been really helpful for them, and it was really cool to see that. And so hopefully if you do take it on and start to practice it, or read the book and figure out how to formulate it in a way that works best for you, I hope that it is able to help you improve your process and help you to take breaks, or help you to estimate time better, or even help you just like with focusing in on things, especially with all of the things happening in the world right now. Mastering this technique takes from like 7 to 20-ish days of like consistent practice and constant application. So know that, and also know that once you start getting the hang of it, it gets easier as you go. And it's really cool to see like how many Pomodoros you can complete in a day, or like how many sets of Pomodoros. I think my record that I can remember, and I remember being really excited about this, and I posted it on Twitter, I had 21, I think, total Pomodoros, which is a total of, I gotta do math in my head real quick, hold on, 30 minutes, wait,
30 minutes, I do 4 Pomodoros, 30, 30, 30, 30.
2, wait,
4 times 2 is 8 plus 30 minutes.
8.5 hours of straight work. I don't know if y'all have actually used a timer to actually track the amount of time you are working, like actually in deep work, and not just like working and then taking a break and then scrolling through Instagram and then getting back to work and then taking a break and then getting back to work and then eating, right? During the workday, we are usually not super focused because we have meetings, we have other things that are popping up on our mind, social media, email. There's not necessarily a time where we're just straight working unless you purposefully carve out that time. And so working straight for 8.5 hours is ridiculous. And so I was so proud, but so fatigued. I typically will strive for 3 to 4 pomodoros, but not pomodoros, 3 to 4 pomodoro sets. So 4 pomodoros, my long break, and then another 4 pomodoros, and then my long break. So like 4 sets of my pomodoro sets. After 3, if I stop for like over 30 minutes, I will be completely wiped. After 4, same thing. That's a lot. That is a lot of time to work. I typically will strive for like a good 6 hour day. Even 4 hours works, but a good 6 hours is pretty good for me. Typically now, since I'm not kind of doing my own thing, but I'm working with a company, I will use the technique for things that I really need to get done and I really need to focus on. So usually this will not be during a work day where I have meetings. So we have no meeting Wednesdays. There's also like after hours because that's when nobody's on, or in the morning, super early in the morning, since I am on the East Coast and I have coworkers that are mostly on the West Coast. I do have some time in the morning to get things done. It is not meant to be used with anything that has to do with like your personal life or things that you like. This is more so on work and things that you really need to focus on and get done. So I can show y'all, it's been a little too long since I have done Pomodoro things in my passion planner, and this is like the janky way of doing it because it really should be done. I started out doing it in a spreadsheet so that I could track my activities and my inventory list and be able to actually record things and estimate my time in the future. Y'all, my video just went out and I really thought that I was going to have to record this entire video again. I have been recording for an hour. Oh my gosh. Okay, but yeah, like I was saying, this is the way that the kind of janky way that I do my Pomodoro. I just literally have, if you can see, tally marks on here that signify my Pomodoros. Clearly, this is like 20, which is too much for one day, but it's for like the whole week, so it's fine. Yeah, that is what I do when I'm feeling lazy and don't want to do it the actual right way. It's really cool to see visually just the amount of time and effort you spent on something, and so this technique is a helpful way to do that and to get that done. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up, y'all. I know this is probably longer than some of the recent episodes that I have posted, but I wanted to make sure that we got through that and that the understanding hopefully was really there. Oh, parting question. Psh, we got this. We got it. So my parting question for you today is, on the spectrum of struggling, y'all are over here, to pretty damn good, where are you with your time management? Are you struggling? Are you over here in this group? Or are you pretty damn good somewhere in the middle? Let me know. And if you are closer to the struggling side, why do you think that is? Really kind of dig deep in there and figure that out and let me know in the comments. But yeah, y'all, it's been real. I have gone through a lot, it seems like, with this episode because of my phone acting up. I do record with my phone. But yeah, if you have any questions or you want to hear more about how I use the Pomodoro technique, or maybe you just don't really understand the book, hit me up, let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions or provide you with any more information that you'd like to know about how I use the technique. If you enjoyed what you heard and you want to stick around for this ride, be sure to subscribe and be sure to hit that notification bell as well to be notified every time I post content. I post new episodes every other Wednesday, and if you would like to sign up for the newsletter, which I encourage you to do, I'll be dropping gems, be sure to sign up. You can do that on the website at www.unpackedangles.com. unpackangles.com. You can also find us on social media. So if you want to hit us up there, you can find us at Unpacked Angles on Instagram and Twitter. It has been real. I hope you have a great day. I hope you're having a great week. I hope you are having a great bout of productiveness, and whatever it is that you are striving to get done this week or to work on this week. So yeah, as always, let me know what you're doing, what you're working on, what you got going on, and I will catch y'all next time, y'all. Deuces.